Hello everyone, my name's Mark Irwin. I'm joining you from Education Scotland. I'm here in Glasgow today, and I'm one of the education officers for STEM, working across the north. But today, really, I'm also working with my colleague Mary Thompson here on COP26 and learning for sustainability. And we're joined by also quite a few of our other colleagues, such as Ian Menzies as well, and really looking forward to hearing from a couple of our other speakers today, Debbie Mathewson from Stowe Primary and Kirsten Leask from the British Council. So what we're going to do today, this is fairly informal. It's been a long day probably for everyone. Me and Mary have just come out of another session that we were doing on outdoor learning. And really today, I guess, is just going through what the countdown to COP is, what we're doing in Education Scotland and some of our partners, such as Keep Scotland Beautiful, etc., are all doing round about COP26 and learning for sustainability. So we'll make a start. We can probably move that slide on now. I'm just going to quickly put up. So I guess for me, one of the questions is, well, what is COP? And there's a presumption, I think, that we all know about it. We all constantly hear about it in the news at the moment. And COP is the Conference of Parties, number 26 on climate. So most people think that the C probably stands for climate, but no, it's Conference of the Parties. And basically what it is that it's the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. And it's where, in fact, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to ask Mary to play a video that was created by the Woodcraft folk, an organisation, and I absolutely love this video because it does explain for me what COP26 is. Mary, if you could play.
Oh, what COP26 is, but what happened at it, and how can kids get involved?
I know, come with me.
COP26, according to the kids, a closer look. Accredited delegates, media and observers attend 2 weeks of meetings to make decisions about what the countries will do to fight climate change and help the people already most affected by it.
Delegates are politicians and leaders from countries around the world. They make policies and laws in their own countries that affect climate change. They also decide who needs to take responsibility for what actions. The media are news reporters and journalists who report news about the COP in their own countries. There will be reporters from all over the world in Glasgow.
Observers are people who are interested in fighting climate change and protecting people. They watch the meetings but don't take part. Then they meet with people in other meetings and tell them what happened at the COP. This helps make sure that politicians do what they said they would and helps organisations work with governments. It also helps campaigning groups find out whether the governments are making decisions about the issues that are most important to ordinary people or not.
Delegates will have meetings to discuss money, energy, youth and public voice, nature and adapting, gender equality, science, transport and cities. Money. How much will it cost and who is going to pay for the changes we need?
Thanks, Mary. You were getting too into it there, weren't you? I said, we'll just play the first minute, but I was the exact same. I just wanted to keep going. Miss Warrender, yes, we're going to come to that as well. That's quite an important part. Can we share that? So there you go. For me, I think it's a really wonderful explanation of what COP26 is. It's about delegates coming together from our governments across the world, but it's also about observers, and it's really about people coming together to really look at climate change, which is the other thing I would like to say. Although this is the countdown to COP, and COP26 happening from the 31st of October to the 12th of November here in Glasgow, and it is the biggest diplomatic event that the UK has ever hosted, actually, it's not really about COP, it's about climate change. That is what we're really wanting to engage with here. And I guess if I reflect on climate change, we do tend to talk about climate change as something that will impact future generations. We say, think about the world our children or our grandchildren will have to live in. However, in particular for me, I would say this last year, that we've demonstrated actually that climate change is not an issue for future generations only. It is happening right here and right now. We've seen the floods, we've seen wildfires, and we've seen lots of evidence coming in, IPCC report, etc. So the urgency of this is really, really important. And so I just really wanted to sort of stress that aspect of it. Climate change is happening now. It's impacting different people all over the world now, and it is not just something that's going to be in the future. So just wanted to say that first of all. So let's move on to what we are doing in Education Scotland about this. I'll just quickly explain the countdown to COP, and then I'm going to ask Mary to come in and speak a little bit about the early years and primary offers. So I'll just put up the screen. So there's the tagline, as you can see, uniting the world to tackle climate change. However, so the countdown to COP. This was part of what we're doing is we have a local authority group who've came together, and one of the asks from them was, can we have an offer, if you like, that people can engage with, that's flexible, that people can pick and choose what parts they want. So that was a challenge that was laid down to Mary and myself in particular to come up with. And one of the things that we reflected on as we were going along was there is a huge amount of resource and amazing partners out there who can really support a lot of this work. So what we were trying to do was not create lots of new stuff. I guess it was more about collating things together. So this website here, so this is on the National Improvement Hub. We will put the link in the chat. You can access. This is where you can access most of the countdown to COP work, and it's mostly links there. So as you see, we roll down here, and what we're really going to talk to you today about is this part here, our resources. So we've got countdown to COP early years through Doug's Discovery Den. We've got the countdown to COP primary, and then we've got the countdown to COP BGE, along with the challenges within there. And there's a few other things we'll share as well as we go along. But now I'm going to pass over to Mary to talk us through the ELC and primary.
Thanks, Mark. Lovely if you've just joined us. Just a wee reminder that, that the session is being recorded this afternoon. So if you are have your camera turned on, that's likely to come through in the recording. You may wish to just have a wee moment to look at and see if you can turn that off. Mark's mentioned there that we have the Countdown to COP offer. This poster, if you haven't seen it before, is available on that page that Mark has mentioned, and it sort of outlines the approach that we've taken to the Explore, Challenge, Action and Share, and really just thinking around how young people, children and young people across Scotland can get involved in Countdown to COP following these 4 aspects. The poster on the right-hand side is what I'm going to talk you through just now, and you'll see that through the different lenses of early years primary and BGE offer. And Countdown to COP materials focuses on the 5 themes that we've selected that will be reflected in the conversations our world leaders will be having. And these are nature, finance, energy transition, clean transport and adaptation and resilience. So I'm going to move now to Doug's Discovery Den, and hopefully you can see that there live on the screen. And if you're familiar with Doug, Doug is very much a partnership with eSchool, and Doug travels around Scotland visiting early learning and childcare settings and early years settings, exploring what there is to offer and what's happening in various locations from that early years perspective. So we have here, if you haven't used ThingLink before, it's an approach that you click on these flashing icons, and learners can open these items themselves and explore what sits behind. Now, for example, as Mark said, we've curated some of the content around this so that learners can experience it themselves, but also practitioners can work through with learners and they can explore that together. So we've got ideas about loose parts. We've got ideas here that children can explore around recycling, what happens to rubbish. So again, any of the pulsing icons that you see on the screen will take you to another sort of content, video content that children can explore for themselves. You'll see down here in the bottom corner, there is an icon about Doug next to a map. And I'm just going to show you that just now. The setting for Doug's Discovery Den this time is the Isle of Arran. And the Isle of Arran, Doug came for his adventures for about a couple of weeks in the summer holidays. And this is a little book, again, exploring lots of ideas linked to learning for sustainability, the climate, and taking care of it in an age-appropriate way. So that's there, and you can explore that, just where we're mindful of children doing and exploring these themes within an age-appropriate way and linked to the play pedagogy, rather than creating some eco-anxiety as we were talking about earlier. Moving on now to the primary schools offer that we have for Countdown to COP. It's also available through the eSchool website and also the Countdown to COP page. And this will be the opening screen that you will see. Again, a wee bit of information about the Countdown to COP conference. And if you click here to explore, it'll open up. It's like a window into the world of Countdown to COP. So hopefully that will be working live for you. And this should come up with the different scenes that we have available. It's taking a wee moment here. So we've got a map of Scotland at the centre, and we're really keen that learners in schools across Scotland will engage with us. We'll get in touch and share what they're doing, and again, get a wee icon on that. That's just a few of the schools that have already been in touch. So again, there's a wee form there. You'll recognise these icons down the side, the 5 themes of COP, and if we just clicked onto one here, that's the theme of nature, and there's lots of different possibilities that learners can explore. Apologies, Jill, if you're not seeing anything. That is the best approach, just to leave and to come back and rejoin. And thanks, Lynn, for posting that comment to help out a colleague there. So again, you'll see we've got the nature theme, and learners will have the opportunity to explore things like biodiversity, about reusing a wee film there about plastic in the ocean, and there's really these kind of flashing icons round about a challenge or some action that the children can take should they wish to, and again, very much designing that for themselves. So just exploring that back, we're just going to go back a page, and I'll give you just a sense of the other scenes that are available for learners to explore. And we'll not go through all of them, but just maybe another one or two, and then I'll show you what's available to support practitioners. So very much thinking around the theme of finance and how we spend our money, and how we the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis, and how that can impact those elsewhere in the world. So in this theme here, we're exploring how food gets to us, the distance that food travels, and we're thinking about the recycling, and how across the world mending things is better than buying new in many occasions, and how we're encouraging that kind of culture within our communities. So you'll see projects and we film clips around that, or indeed one over here, again thinking about how in Sweden, so we're not encouraging learners to explore what happens elsewhere in the world. So for example, in Sweden, there's a whole shopping mall dedicated to buying recycled and reusing and remaking there. So again, thinking around that and how money here that we spend here impacts others in the world. So just looking at one more of the scenes here before moving on. Let's take a little look at the clean transport one. And obviously, schools are very used to having encouraging active travel, and how they can encourage children to use bikes and walk rather than jump on the cars, or indeed take the bus instead. So there's lots of different possibilities around that. Even just clicking on one here, action, and that would take, for example, a walking bus initiative, and that could be something that schools and children are keen to establish if they don't have that already, or indeed something like this, which is just coming up in a wee moment. And again, it's very much about walking from home, and how walking can benefit not only the environment and impact climate change, but also the health benefits too. So I was conscious as we were creating this together that actually it's great, we've got all these links, all these icons that we can click on, but as a practitioner, I would really appreciate knowing what sits behind that. So we created a practical guide that would just take practitioners through the process, link it to the model that we've just shared with you, and also, apologies for your eyes, I'm just going to scroll down to the next page, which would have a little bit of blurb about why nature is an important theme, what the impact is, and what will be explored within that scene, and then various links that have been included, and then also other links that you might wish to explore with your learners, should that be helpful. So again, that's very much available there. And we've got that as a Google Drive on a link to the Countdown to COP page here, which is here, this practical guide, and that should take you to look at and explore those aspects for you. I'm going to stop sharing there, and I'm going to pass back to Mark, who's just going to talk you through a little bit more round about this offer here, the BGE offer, and the aspects that are explored within that. So thanks. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Mary. Yes, so I'm just going to go through the BGE offer that we've created for this. So Well, a slightly different approach, but it's still the same ideas behind it. So we have this opening page here, and someone was asking about that Woodcraft folk video. So as you can see here, right there, what is COP26? So it's that film, and that's about 5.5 minutes, and it is fantastic. I really love it. And I think it's something really important that we hear how young people interpret this. We've also got What is Climate Change, which is a really interesting video from the BBC explaining that. And what is the countdown to COP? You guys are getting this session today, but for others, you can click on the videos. So if you just click on the logos there, you can see there the links come up. So we've got that, what is the countdown to COP, and it explains how to work it. The other thing I would just want to highlight there is this one down at the bottom, and you'll see this on every slide, which is the Explore More button. And that takes you to the wakelets, and we have a number of wakelets that is basically collating lots of the resource that other people are doing or different activities and things. And already in the chat, you can see some really fantastic work, whether it's John Muir Award, whether it's the Children's Parliament, but there is a huge amount of people behind a lot of the work that we're doing on education for climate change, and I guess in particular thinking about COP. What's quite funny about this is people click on it and I can see them up there. So we now have an anonymous giraffe joining us, which again is quite fun. I'm just going to quickly go through the different themes, as we're calling them. So nature, and nature is something very close to my heart, but I think it's really important when we talk about nature in terms of climate change and COP. It's not just about nature-based solutions to climate change. We are in a joint crisis at the moment, which is the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. So we really want young people to understand that we cannot solve one without solving the other. They are completely interlinked, as are all these themes. So just quickly show you how these pages work. Similar to what Mari was talking about, we have these explore buttons. So you click on the magnifying glass and it takes you into, this is a really nice one about the role of trees and woods in fighting climate change. We have challenge, and what is the challenge that these themes sort of face, and how do we look at that? And this is quite a nice little website here that really allows you to explore that quite in depth. And then finally, we have action. And again, we're really keen about encouraging schools and young people to take action. And that I guess is when I think about eco-anxiety. We have to be active. We have to engage with it actively, I think. Otherwise, it can feel very overwhelming. So that's the same model across all of these. So you can see the image behind it. So we're looking at woodlands. Here, we're looking at water. And actually, right at the end here, we're looking at extinction. And again, BBC have been great for giving us access to their videos. Just sent me another one just yesterday as well. So that's the sort of model there. You can see again down at the bottom, explore more. And that will take you to a wakelet for, let's see, what one would that be? Perhaps this one here. So that would take you to a nature wakelet. And that allows us to collate all the other resources that people are sending us. And lots of different partners are sending these. So it's great. So we'll go back to here again. If you click on the eye, that again is just a short video explaining how to use this, if people aren't obviously coming here today. The video camera up here as well. So that is, we have a video that explains each theme, very short. Mari's about to kill me for this one. So if you click on these, you will, so here we've got Abby from Nature Scot, great video explaining nature in Scotland. There's one of me in my local train station talking about transport. And there's Mari, who's talking about energy transition and renewables up at Whiteley's. So that gives you an idea of there. So we look at nature, we're looking at finance. So within finance, that was quite a tricky one for us to think about. And the sort of themes that we're looking at here with finance are, we're looking at retail in particular, because we're trying to encourage young people to think about the power of the money in their pocket and the decisions they make. So that's quite important that we think about that. BGE is broad general education, Francis. So realistic, that's just the way we were talking about. It's not really secondary, because I think upper primary could use a lot of these resources as well. But what we're looking at here is things such as sustainable fashion. How do we produce things? And then we're looking at the circular economy. Really important economic move that we're making. And this stuff really explains quite a lot of that there. And then finally, we're looking at more of the global finance, and in particular thinking about the global south and some of the challenges that they face. I'll quickly go through the next three, and then I'm going to talk about the challenges you can see up here at the top right. Energy transition. So we're looking at this, quite an interesting aspect here. So really looking at our energy needs. So there's a great TED talk, one that I really enjoy, is how much electricity does it take to run the world? And that's the kind of question I think that my wee boy, who's 7, would probably ask me. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the move to renewable energy. So some really interesting ideas within Bright Ideas, and looking at batteries, and also looking at some stuff from Keep Scotland Beautiful about energy savers. And then finally over here, again, looking at the issue in the global south, if you like. And many of you may have watched The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, an amazing film on Netflix. This is actually the TED Talk from William, the original one, and I really encourage people to look at that. It's really, really inspiring. And again, with the action there, let's make s'mores with a solar oven, gives you an idea of what that could be. Clean transport. And again, interestingly, for transport, it's not about just about the electrification of a transport system, really thinking about encouraging active travel. So we're talking about walking, we're talking about cycling, really want to see more people doing that, more schools engaging with that as much as possible. And then we are looking at electrification of our transport system. And then finally, we're going to look at adaptation and resilience. And this is, I guess, the sort of last theme that's perhaps capturing some of the other aspects. So we're really interested in the idea of adaptation about where you live, what the kind of things that your community might need to do. So I know we're joined with some colleagues from Islay. What's that like in an island? What does that mean for those that live on islands? And what does it mean for people like me who live in cities as well? We're also looking at food. Lots of issues around about food. I don't need to go into more detail at the moment about that. That's quite a current issue, shall we say. And then finally, we're looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. A couple of things in here I'd like to highlight. So the Youth Climate Film Project. This is films that were made by young people. Go in there and explore, see what young people across Scotland have been making. And then finally on the Sustainable Development Goals, which is really at the heart of this. The global goals is really what we want a lot of focus on as well. So you can have a look in there. And finally, where's the next step for you in your school and your class? Climate Ready Classrooms from Keep Scotland Beautiful. Great project, one that I would really recommend people engage with. Okay, so quick whistle-stop tour there. I'm just now going to talk about these things up here, the countdown to COP challenges. And these are more, I guess, a sort of design approach for our themes. So I'll very quickly show you this one. So this is the Nature Challenge. We have 3 of these set up within Book Creator. So this one's on nature. And as you go through it, it explains what the countdown to COP challenge is. It then gives a wee bit of context about COP26. It then talks about what is the issue that this theme is facing. So the biodiversity crisis here. But then we give you the challenge. So the challenge here is design a product to support biodiversity that can be used in built-up spaces. So really thinking about that, and we want you to think about things to consider there. And we really want some interesting ideas, something about that really pushes the boundaries, if you like. So I mean, I think I've put it somewhere in there that it could even be in the sky. Could you have something hanging from some light lampposts, etc., that would encourage biodiversity? After that, then it goes through what I would call a sort of hackathon model or a design challenge model. So it goes through here telling you what you need to do, gives you some ideas of time. So setting up teams, carrying out research, ideation, coming up with ideas, deciding what you're going to work on, and then creating prototypes or models, or it could be digital models, and then a final product. And again, this is very much about, we want young people to actively engage with a lot of these themes. The other 2 challenges that we have for COP come from our friends at the Futures Institute of Dollar Academy. So for our finance one, this is here, and this is about upcycling jeans. So it's really interesting, the environmental impact of the denim industry. You can really investigate that and then look at transforming an old pair of jeans into something new. So these are fantastic challenges. There's also one on community, my food. So really, really interesting approaches that I would encourage you to investigate and have a look at. And if you do take part, please share what you're doing with them, with us. So that's the BGE. Aware of the time, so I'm just going to very quickly go through a couple of other things for us. There's another two aspects I want to mention with the countdown to COP. So tomorrow usually it's a Friday, but because of the September weekend here, we are doing DYW Live, countdown to COP at DYW Live. Tomorrow I'm interviewing Harry Crispin from Hilton Hotels International, who's the sustainability manager, who'll be talking about his career pathway and what big companies like Hilton Hotels are doing to become more sustainable. So you can just actually click on this and you can watch them. They're at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we've got another two coming up. You can see the one from last Friday there, and we were looking at an organisation in Durness who's taken fishing nets and turning them into paddle boards, and someone who was working in water voles in Northumbria. So I'd recommend that. For others, we also have Scotland's Assembly. And again, that's going to be on Friday today, and you'll hear from Izzy and Apparel Exchange, who I just heard actually was, I think it was a Daily Light Award from the Prime Minister she received this week. So really interesting in there as well, and you can investigate a little bit more of that. The last things I think I should just mention before we move on to Debbie, that would be great. So what we're doing, I mentioned already about the wakelets. And this is an opportunity for us to bring things together. A lot of partners are sharing stuff with us. So you can click on these and you can see lots of different resources. I have to warn you, it can turn into a bit of a rabbit hole when you can vanish into these wakelets. But there's a lot of really fantastic resources on here. So again, encourage you to look at them. These are all linked to our BGE offer as well, so you can have a look at that. Last thing to say is there's also for the CLD youth worker sector, we also have our countdown to COP page here, which is really looking at what does youth work do round about some of this. And again, it's the one, Julie from that has created wakelets and allowing us to collate a lot of this work here. So you can see here some of the resources that are out there, also quite nicely, some of the professional learning as well. So that was very fast. Thankfully, this is getting recorded, so you can revisit that. I am now going to pass back to Mary to introduce Debbie, so I can grab a breath.
Great, thanks, Mark. Lovely to hear about all the resources that are available. And if colleagues on the call, if you're aware of other resources or things that you've used, we'd love for you to pop that into the chat, or indeed to get in touch with us. We would also love that too. We're going to pop in the email address for Countdown to COP at Education Scotland just in a wee moment, and please get in touch with us that way. We'd love to hear what you're doing to share the work that your learners are doing across Scotland as well, to complement the work that local authorities are already doing. So we're really delighted to hear from Debbie now. I'm just going to share the presentation for Debbie. Debbie works in Scottish Borders Council, and she is not only a champion of learning for sustainability there and has been for a number of years, but she has also joined the local authority network too, and we're really grateful to have her voice in influencing and supporting the work that we are doing. So I think actually for some reason it just disappeared there. I think it should be back. Debbie, can you confirm for me that you can see it on the screen?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I've got it. I can see it.
We're hugely grateful to Debbie giving up her time at the end of a busy school day to share with us, and hopefully you'll appreciate hearing just some reality from what Debbie's doing and some work that's happening in Stow right now. So over to you, Debbie. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Mary. So as Mary said, my name's Debbie Mathieson. I'm the principal teacher at Stow Primary School. I've also taken on a seconded role 3 days a week with Scottish Borders Council and Learning for Sustainability. And really today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how our Learning for Sustainability journey started, and really how our approach to climate action started as well. Can I have the next slide, please, Mary? So In probably 2015, on visiting the Scottish Learning Festival, we were introduced to some good practice from Moray Council around their approaches to IDL, and this led myself and a colleague to visit a school up in Moray who had been seen as very good practice and how their approaches to interdisciplinary learning. On visiting the school, it was one of those wow moments for me. It was a school you wanted to work in, and if you certainly couldn't work up there, you wanted to make sure that you were teaching like them through IDL. The learning was pupil-led, it was linked to prior learning, and the pupil's voice shone through. The 4 capacities were evident in all of the pupils. So on my return to Stow, I had the responsibility of leading this new way of thinking and teaching within the school, and also our partner school. So at that point, we moved from individual topics to concepts and planning focused around learning goals and key questions, with each of the questions covering knowledge, skills and application. This switch supported pupil-led learning, it incorporated pupil voice, and it promoted curiosity within pupils through the visible thinking routines. Can I go to the next slide, please, Mary? The concept in 2018 was sustainability, and with all the concepts, you start with a hook, and the hook is to engage the pupils. We were gifted 2 hooks at this point, and the first one is the little boy on the screen is my friend's son in New Zealand, who'd had a huge amount of success in lobbying a ferry company in Auckland to stop using plastic straws on their service. And I shared Monty's story at an assembly in Stow. The second hook was Sir David Attenborough's Blue Planet 2, where the world was shocked by what was happening in our oceans. So this was really the catalyst for our Learning for Sustainability journey, our introduction to global citizenship, and also climate action within Stow Primary School. So we'd started global and we started to go into local. We'd been shown what was happening in our oceans. We had evidence through Monty that pupil voice could affect change, and we had an understanding and realisation that what we did could and would impact elsewhere in the world. So our pupil voice was heard, our pupil-led learning supported, and pupils were supported to take action to apply their knowledge and skills to a meaningful context and a relevant context. So pupils met with local counsellors, they met with the parent council, they held community cafes, meetings took place with catering staff, and the teaching and learning incorporated the rights of the child, developing the young workforce and different volunteer groups. Can we go to slide 4, please, Mary? On hearing Monty had shared his story further, not to be outdone by an 8-year-old 12,000 miles away, our pupils were further inspired, and that becoming one of the Hunter Foundation's 100 disruptors provided the platform for our pupils to educate a wider audience. So they became 100 disruptors on the basis that they would run a community event that disrupted people's views around single-use plastic. So looking from global to local, we were starting to look locally. So we knew what was happening in the world's oceans, but we needed to know what was happening here on our doorsteps. So workshops took place on the local river. We contacted Excel Vending, who brought in a reverse vending machine to the school, where the pupils learnt about the deposit return scheme, which was also under consultation with the Scottish Government at that time. They worked with a graphic designer to plan their event, and also a social enterprise to make a recycled cow, and they worked with Zero Waste Scotland. So at this point, community partnerships were strengthened and new ones were established, and the creative and effective approaches were adopted to get the message through at the event, including a rap, a song, and the creation of the recycled cow from Stow. At that time, we really anticipated that would be the celebration of our sustainability work, when in fact it was the opposite. It was the start of our Learning for Sustainability journey, but also the start of climate action within the school. We'd ignited a passion and enthusiasm with our pupils and parents and the community to unite and make a difference to their world. Next slide, please, Mary. So this led us as a staff to look more into Learning for Sustainability, and we engaged in professional reading. We self-evaluated against the framework. We reviewed our planning and our IDL, and we began to reflect more of the learning for sustainability approaches. Presentations were delivered to the Parent Council, and we brought in community partners to support our planning. And always when we were planning our IDL, we were always looking at what happened in the past, to what was happening in the present, to what the future would look like, and thinking always about what knowledge did we need, what skills do we need to develop in the pupils, and how would they apply them to make a difference in the future. And again, looking at what was happening locally that impacted globally and vice versa. So things like when we were looking at World War II, for example, we took the pupils down to the War Memorial, and the question was asked, why would people in Stow be involved in a war that was in Europe? And then thinking back to Monty, why would the New Zealanders have been sent to Europe to support us in a war? So just linking it back to, you know, that we don't live in isolation and we're an interconnected world. We ran campaigns, so we had enterprise businesses that sold bamboo toothbrushes, we've sold reusable face masks, we've had a toast bar that was social enterprise, all developing skills for life with the pupils, and pupils engaging in their learning and seeing the relevance of what they were doing, and also using their voice to be able to educate others. So the pupils were continually, or are continually supported to make connections across their learning and see the relevance of their learning. See slide 6, please, Mary. Last year, coming back to school in August after the first lockdown, we introduced the Sustainable Development Goals to the pupils, and we did this by introducing 1 or 2 a term, and these were also shared on the calendar with parents, so that in planning around these goals, incorporated national days that linked to them. Very quickly, these became embedded into the classroom and into the life of the school, with pupils, staff and parents intrinsically making the links across the curriculum into prior learning. So an example of this would be, we did a food waste and frozen food challenge that was set by Iceland Supermarket, and it was really to show another aspect of us taking climate action, but the pupils could then see that linked with zero hunger, or it linked with no poverty. So having looked at them last year over the school year, the Sustainable Development Goals, we agreed as a staff to allow the pupils to vote on the 4 SDGs to look at for this year, in addition to climate action, which would always be one that we would focus on. Last slide, please. So where are we just now? We became a connecting classroom in June in June just past. So in addition to all of our classes doing the countdown to COP and the activities that Mark and Mary have spoken about earlier, we're also working in collaboration with our partner school in Mumbai, and we're doing a joint campaign in time for COP around SDG 14, Life Below Water. So again, enforcing how our world is interconnected, and what happens on the beaches of Mumbai is likely to have an effect on us, and vice versa. We've also encouraged the school in Mumbai to join us in doing Maths Week Scotland, which is themed towards COP, and they're also are going through some of the themes on the countdown to COP. Again, just to emphasise that we're interconnected, and this is all of us working together to help the world. In addition to working with our partners in Mumbai, we are also working with community groups in the village. So there's several of them, Stow Community Trust and also Green Stow, and they're going to work with our pupils to host workshops, to share their learning, whether that be some of the themes through the countdown to COP work, or different campaigns that our pupils are doing to have their voices heard. So they'll do poems, they'll do raps, all encouraging people to take action both on climate change and the biodiversity crisis. We're quite confident now that the wave of change that we started 3 years ago is what we believe is now embedded in our community. The community mirror our ethos in a lot of ways, and are always the first to come in and support the school and partner the school in different and different aspects of our work. So all I can suggest is that for those of you that might want to start on your learning for sustainability journey, COP26 provides the ideal hook to engage and capture and enthuse your learners with a relevant and real context. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Debbie, thank you so much for sharing your journey, which has been a lot of activity in a very short period of time. So thank you, a huge thank you from us to you and the community at Stow for being able to share your journey so far, and how it's exciting to see how it is continuing and that the learners in Stow are making a difference, and you've continually taken that kind of local and global aspect. It's really, really inspiring, as Mark has popped into the chat there. So a huge thank you from us on behalf of Education Scotland to you and the children of Stow. We're going to invite our colleague Kirsten Leask to come and share with us just in a moment. I'll get the slide up for that. And what we're thinking around for Kirsten works for Learning for Sustainability Scotland, should I say. And there's an opportunity for a really exciting professional learning opportunity coming our way. And Kirsten's just going to talk us through that just in the last few minutes that we have. And Mark and I will be available on the call afterwards for some conversations, some chat, and indeed some kind of questions, should that be helpful. So Kirsten, if you wouldn't mind taking over, that would be grand. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thanks so much, Mary, that's great. So yeah, if you could pop our first slide up, that would be fabulous, thank you. Yes, so hi everybody, my name is Kirsten Leask and I'm a project manager with Learning for Sustainability Scotland, and I'm absolutely delighted to share a very quick overview of two exciting new online professional learning opportunities that will be available to a global audience from the start of October. So these massive open online courses, or MOOCs, are being co-developed by all of the partners that you see on the screen there. And I'd like to share our warmest thanks to Mary and Mark and Ian and the team at Education Scotland for giving us the opportunity to share more about them with you. The slides have got hyperlinks in them to find out more about the courses, but I'll put the links in the chat as well, just so that you can have a click through at the end of this session. Could we get the next slide, please, Mary? Thank you. Thanks so much. Well, as we all know, climate change, gender equality, health and well-being, nature loss and human rights are just some of the big issues that affect us all, wherever we are. And we also know that these are huge issues with no easy answers. So we'd be delighted if you would join us on a personal and professional learning journey to explore these big issues together. Our first course, Learning for a Sustainable Future, starts on the 4th of October, and over 5 weeks we'll share and learn more to develop that informed personal and professional response to these big issues and take positive actions towards a sustainable future. We want to build a global learning community with you, and so throughout the course there'll be opportunities for you to share and explore your ideas and perspectives with other participants as part of the learning. The course is designed for anyone with an interest in sustainability, which should obviously be everybody, of course, but it also has an additional strand for those who are working in formal or informal education who want to bring some of the activities and issues covered in the course into their own practice. Don't worry if you can't make this first iteration of the course in October. We'll be running it again in spring 2022, so we'll obviously keep in touch with you if that's something you'd be interested in. Can we get the next slide, please? Thank you. We'll also be running Learning for a Sustainable Future live at COP26, which will be a 2-week course starting on the 1st of November, which will run alongside the COP26 conference. And during that, we'll explore a range of perspectives on sustainability and COP from across different educational sectors, including schools, communities, youth education, etc. We'll also bring you additional news events and some of the activities that happen as the COP climate conference unfolds. And enrolments for this course will be available in late September. Don't worry again if you can't make the course as it happens. All of the resources that we'll be showcasing in the course will be available for 6 weeks after it finishes, so you can make full use of it as a learning resource. So that's it really, and if you've got any questions or queries, then please don't hesitate to get in touch at the email address on the screen, inquiries@lfsscotland.org, and we're very much looking forward to sharing and learning with you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kirsten. Always a pleasure, and I would really encourage you to have a look at some of the MOOCs. Are absolutely fantastic. So that's us. We've managed to run out of time. Me and Mary are getting dab hands at leaving no time for any difficult questions for us. But you do have our contact, especially the countdown to COP at Education Scotland. Drop us a line for anything there. And as I've said, I'll be sharing a lot of the links, etc. Through the Wakelet and also through our networks. I'd just like to thank Debbie and Kirsten for joining us today. Really great and really important that we hear from our partners, and in particular some of our practitioners that are doing such fantastic work for learning for sustainability. So thank you all very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.